Hello, fight fans, and welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. My guest today is a flyweight MMA athlete with 15 professional fights to his name. He's competed on prestigious events such as BAMA, Made for the Cage and Cage Warriors, and he was the first Made for the Cage two-weight division European champion, Mr. Shaj, Superman Haque. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Walaikum salam. That was a hell of an intro.
Well, you know, I'm using my MC skills, right?
I felt like I was ready to go into a fight. I was just getting.
Judge, thank you so much for joining us, brother. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No, anytime. Thank you for having me.
So one of the things I'd like to ask you, brother Shaj, is the fight name Superman. What's the story behind that, if you can share that with us?
Right. So, yeah, the name, I think it was when I was about 15, 16. It was in the early stages of when I started training. I think I just had a few fights around then. And obviously the other guys in the gym had their little fight names and things. And I thought it was quite corny back then. It's like, oh, but, you know, people making their own fight names up. And it was like, fight names should really just come to you, shouldn't it? Now that I look at it. But so anyways, it was some daft names they were firing out. And then I've always, like, when I was a kid, I used to love Superman. So I was like, oh, I'll be Superman. And then it was the thing where the guys were like, I seen a name like Superman, you've got to earn something like that. And then it kind of just went off there. And then it was when I had fought, it was one of my amateur fights. It was when I was fighting Brent Crowley. So I think I was about 18 then. And it was around that time. So I was a massive underdog in that fight because Brent Crowley was a, upcomer then. And he was training with like Dan Hardy and things when they were, I think, just got the UFC and things like that. And then I had people around me saying it's a daft fight to take, even though it was that amateur. Like, he's way ahead of me and things like that. And then it was then my coach and the guys were like, if you win this fight, you can have your name as Superman. So I was like, I was fired up. I'm going to earn my name. So then I went to that fight and it was a hell of a fight. I remember that was the first time I ever been dropped in a fight as well. And then, but I came back and I won that fight. And then, so it just kind of went from there. And I went, right, I'm going to have my name. And it just went from there. So after that, in the next following fights, I said, I'm going to be announced as Superman. And awesome. It kind of just went out from there.
Well, it suits you, brother. It does, man. The way you compete as well. You bring it, brother. So it suits you.
Yeah, and I'd always said, I was thinking, because I was small and I'd always fighting bigger people all the time. So I was going there. That name will suit me fine. I'm going to prove to you guys I might be smaller than everybody, but I'll be coming on top. And it kind of just went from there.
Shaj, if you can share with us your mixed martial arts journey from a young age on a timeline of what sort of sports you got into and how you ended up where you are now.
Oh, yeah. It's the start of it's quite interesting. So my brother, Sham, you'll know Sham, he was talented in sport all the time since we were little. Me, up till probably the age of like 12, I don't even think I didn't do anything else other than play computer games. I was a total couch potato. I was heavier when I was 11 years old than I am now, right? No. Because I was almost like 12 stone or something. I'm sure I had a 12 and a half at one point. And this was me at like 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. So you can imagine, like I was well out of shape. So Sham was known as the sporty one. I was known as the little bit fat one. And it was only till I got to about age of about 12, I think it was when I started secondary school. Then because before then, what my problem was, every so often I would play football or something when I was younger, but I'd play with my brother's friends and they were like 3 years older than me. So I used to think I'm just terrible because I was crap. I'll get picked last every time. And then it was only till I got to secondary school, I started playing more with guys my age, kids my age. And then it came to like, it was the cross country we do in school where it was like a run. It was just over a mile, I think you run and the whole school runs it. And me just thinking I've got no sporting talent. I'm just going to go and just going to run and see what I can do. And I ran. And I won it by like nearly like a couple 100 meters, like for the second guy. I smashed it. I was thinking, I can't be that fast, can I? I was absolutely like gobsmacked out of all these about 100 other kids. I came out first by a long shot, and all the other kids were like, "Oh, you're fast as out, you're fast as out." I had never felt like got told any compliments in terms of like my physical attribute up till then. And I thought that was like it was just like an inspirational moment for me to like get a bit of belief that I can do sporting things. And so I took up running then. So I used to do a little bit of running. I think, oh, well, I'm quite good at that. And then just kind of went from there. So I started realizing that when I played football, I was actually quite fast. When I played with my own age, I was just slow because I used to play with my brother's friends and they were 2 years older. And it just went from this. I got into sport around that age. and I've always liked martial arts films and things. I used to be a big fan of Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, all these guys. To watch Power Rangers all the time. And so when I got to about around 12, around 13, so about another year or two later, it started off with my brother and his friends. They decided to get cheap boxing gloves from Sports Direct, and we would we would do some sparring in like back lanes. Now, bear in mind, none of us have trained then, so I remember we used to put them on. We used to have little scraps in the back lane and of places, and I used to enjoy it. It was quite fun.
Were they Everlast gloves?
Yeah, it was. It was like these yellow ones and these red ones. You got them for like a tenner from Sports Direct. So we had a pair of them, and we used to just match each other, and we used to like have little matches. And I remember I got hit by one of my brother's friends. He was a bit older as well, and he hit me right in the eye once, and I thought like I couldn't see properly, and I got scared then. So I remember thinking, oh, and then later on, so I didn't really do it too much more after that. And then it was around about when I got to like 14. Then it was like that's when the fighting fit started. So it was my brother that was doing it. He was doing like working with some like in the youth groups and things like that. And then he was just saying, "Oh, he's going to this martial arts thing." And I said, "Oh, can I just tag along?" And I think that, they went, "Yeah, I think anybody can come." So we went along, and then that's when I had my first little experience of like actual martial arts in a like actual room with other people and getting taught it. So we used to just do like on the spot moves and things like that. And I just enjoyed it. And then I would just keep coming back because I thought, this is quite fun. And then it was also the self-defense aspect because I was quite small. And in school, obviously, you always don't want to be the small guy that can get pushed around. So I did it more for like self-defense reasons. That's what I think was my initial motivation to carry on doing it. I enjoyed it, but I think the self-defense aspect was why I did it even when I didn't enjoy it as much. And then I kind of just stuck at it and did it more for that reason. Loved the fitness, and then slowly started getting quite good at it. And then it was like one of them amateur kickboxing competitions, the open mat ones, the ones where you fight like multiple people in one day and things like that. And I went and did my first one of them. So I was after about a year of training, did my first one of them, and that was the first ever actual combat experience where eyes are on me, people are watching. And I remember I think I had about 2 or 3 fights. There was only about 2 or 3 other guys in my division. So I had about 2 or 3 fights, and I won them both. And I came first, and just that feeling of winning, I'd never felt it. You'll understand it. You've competed before. That first feeling of winning, and especially being like a fight, it was just unbelievable. I remember just thinking it was like a drug, and I just couldn't wait for the next one. And it was like back then we didn't have as many competitions, so I can't remember. I think it was like 6 months to another year before I did the next one. But I was looking forward to it so much, trained for it for ages, and then when I did the next one, I won again, and I think that just motivated me to keep doing it. And kind of just went from there. And eventually, I can't remember how it came about. We started trying the grappling. I think it was the coach that decided, said that MMA was like growing around now, and wanted us to try grappling. And then we started. It was because bear in mind we were just in like a community center then, so we should train like once or twice a week. And when we first did grappling, we hated it. We were like, "What is this? What is this cuddling and all this going on?" So I was thought, "Oh, this is pathetic." I hated it. We used to do once a week. I think it was grappling, and I used to try to dodge that session, and I'd be like, I didn't like it. And I think it was, but I'd still do it every so often because I wanted to still be able to fight. And if I remember correctly, I think it was because back then there was do you know Eddie Yang?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so Eddie Yang, and he came along. I can't remember, one of the guys met him somewhere and brought him along. So he used to teach the grappling. And again, I didn't enjoy it, but he was really good. And then he brought along Ryan Scope, and I forgot there was another kid that came with him.
They're from the northeast, aren't they?
Yes,
I think
from the northeast. So
combat and places like that.
yeah, they probably did. Yeah, I think they did fight him. I'm sure he's fought on loads of shows. So Ryan Scope's doing really well. So Ryan was, I think, a year younger than me, if I remember correctly. I think he's a year younger than me or so. So when your kid's like 14, 15, you obviously eye up people around your own age. And I remember first time, I think I grappled with him. He probably won't even remember it. I grappled with him, and he just like destroyed me. I was thinking, what is this? This younger kid is absolutely killing me here. And it just gave me this other kind of respect for grappling. I thought, this stuff is real. Like first I thought it was a bit daft until I got like absolutely killed by somebody, because I used to only grapple with my brothers and things, and they were a bit bigger, so I used to think that was just because they're bigger. But when I got like absolutely destroyed by some of my own like age, similar size, it kind of gave me that kick up the back, saying I need to learn this stuff if I want to like do this properly. So that's what kind of gave me that respect for grappling. I kind of started doing it a bit more. I had my first amateur MMA fight when I'd only grappled for like 6 weeks or something, like 6 or 7 weeks. And it's quite funny. I've actually got footage of it. And I watched it back. It was a C class, so if you remember, no headshots, but only like on the ground. So I'd only done striking. So I was thinking, this is very odd. So I thought, game plan, I'll just kick his legs and it might just work. I went in there trying to kick his legs, and the kid just took me down, and he would just pin me. And he just pinned me. I couldn't get him off. And I'm thinking, what is it? I watched myself doing the techniques. That's horrendous. I'm just moving around like a fish, just trying to push him off. And then, but luckily, the second round came, and I knew how to sprawl. So I was able to sprawl a few times, and I won the second round just by kicking his legs and things like that. And I drew that fight, but I still had lost. But I enjoyed it. It was strange, even though I was getting killed in the grappling. So I started grappling more after those things, and then just kind of went on from there. Just did a few amateur fights, started loving it. And then it was amateur and then semi-pro then, wasn't it? It wasn't you didn't just, so I had all the mad rule sets. And then when I turned semi-pro, I think I was about 17. So I had about 4 or 5 amateur fights, and then I turned about 17. And then I had my first it's a B class now, but a semi-pro then. And so it was with the headshots with the small gloves. Oh wow. And thinking I was a striker, I went into the fight, and I was a total wrestler. I just grabbed him and took him down, and I just went in the ground. I out-grappled him. But man, I took that fight at featherweight, so it was 65 kilos, and I was like 59 kilos. So the kid was a lot heavier. I won that fight, and then came my second semi-pro fight. Now this fight, I fought a kid, and I lost that fight, and he snapped my arm. So it was a Kimura. I think I can't remember the show's name. It was Pride and Glory or something it was called then.
It was
a
Kimura show.
I think so. Yes. I think that's it used to be Mick Knox show. So I fought in that show, and then it was like a Kimura, and he snapped my arm. I remember it was weird the way it broke as well. It was the bone that broke, not my shoulder. So I had like 3 breaks down there. And I thought that was it. I thought, wow, if I'm arm broken, I thought I'm never going to fight again. That's me done. And I kind of put that fear on me as well. When you have an injury like that, it's one of those make or break moments. And I was 17. Anything like I was thinking maybe this is not for me. Seeing my mom's reaction, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to deal with her. And I was in a cast, but I was really lucky. They didn't need to do surgery in my arm because it was such a clean break. They were able to keep it. They just told me, the specialist said, if I keep my arm very still, and there's a good chance the bone might fuse again without having to do surgery on it. So I said, okay, I'll take that chance of trying that first before the surgery. And then I did. I literally kept it still like that, didn't even move. And then I only got up to go to the toilet for like 3-4 weeks. And then and it did heal. And funny enough, I still remember this, right? When I went to the hospital for the checkup, it was like 2-3 weeks checkup. The doctor was really surprised at how well my bone fused. He actually said, wow, you're like Superman. I still remember that. And I thought, oh, look at that. It all plays into the He was like, yes, healed really well. And so that gave me a little bit of confidence that I was recovering. And then I didn't know if I was going to come back to train. But it was just that I remember telling myself, because I used to do running as well, like I mentioned before. And I wanted to do something. I wanted to do it properly. So I said, before I turn 18, I'm going to make a decision. Am I going to aim for the Olympics with my running, or I'm going to try and be a professional fighter? And I kind of started getting put off the running. Like I got bored of it a little bit. And it was, as my arm recovered, I made this decision. I was like, that's it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this properly. Because I used to train blasé here and there, eat what I want. And I thought, I'm going to train this properly. I was in college doing sports, so I kind of started understanding what discipline it takes to be successful. And then I came back with a totally different mindset. As soon as my arm was recovering, I was watching all my other, like my brothers and everybody else competing. I wanted it back, and I wanted people to take me seriously in it. So then after that, it gave me this mad motivation. Now, what happened? I think I didn't lose for another about 8 years in any competition after that. So like all my amateur fights, I won every one of them. And then it was only till I turned pro. That's when I had my first losses, like when I was, I think, in my 4th pro fight or something like that. But it was just a knock-on effect from there. When I got really motivated, just kept training from there. Everything else I think everybody knows after that. Turned pro at 21. I feel like I made the smart decision. I didn't turn pro till I finished uni because I wanted to commit properly to it. So in uni, I took like a gap year from fighting. I did like a little bit of ABA boxing actually. I just wanted to just try some different stuff out and just pick up new skills. So I went to like an ABA gym. Had a few boxing fights in that gap year, and then I decided once I finished uni, got all my education out of the way, and I saved up as much money as I could, so I didn't have to like go to work straight away. And I wanted to focus on my professional career, and that's when I kind of like really made the full commitment to training pro. And then the rest of it. Had loads of fights. I can talk all day about each and every fight. But just one thing went for another there, and here I am.
No, I appreciate you sharing that with us, brother. Just one thing in there. You mentioned fighting fit. Now, I remember years ago, there was me and Pete Bradbury who had a promotion. And I remember coming to it was literally an empty shop on a main road with the shutters there. And it must have been about 12, 13, 14 years ago. And I had my little briefcase and taking photos of gyms and fighters to get them on the show. Did you used to train in that empty shop on this?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, well, I think you'll know. I think kids now and people now take it for granted. There's so many great facilities now. Everybody's got a good gym to train at. But you know, back then you made do with what you had. You had to try. I had people that used to train in their garages and things for professional fights. And we started at a community centre, so that was actually a step up for us. We had our own place there, so we used to train at a community centre once or twice a week. And then it was a little, it was a small. It must have been what 4 by 4 square meters or something. The room, it wasn't very big. And but to us that was excellent. We had our own space. It was huge. But now that place is like a jewelry shop. But yeah, we're only there for a short amount of time, about 2 months or something like that. But yeah, I think experiences like that make you appreciate like facilities and things now. I always tell that to the guys that I teach now. I'm always telling them, you just have no idea how you guys have got it. You guys have got coaches that are super experienced. You got all the facilities and everything. Right in front of you. I think a lot of guys take it for granted. Don't realize that the past few generations how guys had to train back then to get to where they are.
And also back then, you were becoming an athlete and training to fight, but also you were learning on the job, right?
Yeah, basically, because MMA is so new. I mean, you'll know about it yourself. You were in the generation before me, really. So it's I think it kind of was like that. You didn't have as many role models and things back then. In fact, MMA gyms weren't, for me, when I was training, it was only a few years after. There wasn't any MMA gyms. It was like a kickboxing gym, grappling place, and you'd kind of just train in a few different places and you'd fight MMA. So there wasn't really an MMA gym. The sport was like, only now, even now, people are just getting to know what MMA is. They just know UFC, and the sport is still very young. And I think back then, you just had to do what you could do because the fighters and people within the sport knew what it's all about. But outside, it was just like people just knew it as cage fighting.
You're right. It had a bad image to it, didn't it?
Yeah, very bad. I think it was a stereotype because of the word cage, and I think everybody just that's this cage fighting. Don't think it helped though. On YouTube, you can only find these videos where the people are literally in a little cage, like a fenced cage. And I remember watching like Kimbo Slice and things, and they would be fighting and things. So I think people used to think that's what it is when they think bare knuckled all that. But obviously the MMA was actually a bit more of a sport. People didn't understand. It was very similar to boxing the way it was done. It was done quite well, really, considering.
For sure, brother. Now, brother Shaj, you've had 15 professional fights. The last fight you had was on Cage Warriors 114 against an undefeated Jake Hadley. Can you tell me what you knew about Jake at the time and what your preparation was, and then talk us through the fight?
Yeah, So I had a lot of respect for Jake. I knew I'd seen he had beat some world champions. He had fought in the EFC, so I knew he was a legit opponent. And also I felt like when I seen him in the position of his career, I remembered when I was that age in that position of my career, when you just fired up, the world's at your feet and you're motivated. I think it was 24, 25. And I remember me at 24, 25. I had some of my best performances around then. All you can you focus everything on it. So I had a lot of respect for Jake. So I knew it was going to be a tough fight. But also, I believe in myself. I had fought the best there is. You just have to look through my record. You'll know that I've fought everybody. It was a tough camp. There's a lot of difference in this camp. Obviously, one, there was the COVID thing, so that changed everything in terms of the way the prep, like training partners and training schedules, everything, what's available. Everything was a little bit all over the place. But I'd say the prep went all right still. I can't, complain too much. I had a few injuries that I wish I trained a bit more sensible around them, but it's hindsight. You've got to do what you can do. You make the decision at the time. But the camp was fine. And then obviously in the fight itself, I felt like I was winning the fight, to be fair. If I watched the fight back, I felt like I was winning the fight, and then I got caught with a head kick. I felt like, looking back, I just didn't manage my range properly as well as I probably should have. He had like better striking than I actually thought. I knew he'd have good striking. He kind of came up with a little bit different pace than I anticipated he would come at. I knew he'd try to put pressure on me, but and being a southpaw was a little bit different as well. And I think he came with a good plan, and you can tell I knew what he did. He decided to put pressure on me suddenly, change the pace, and it did catch me off guard because I'm usually good once I get my timing on somebody, and I felt like he caught me before I could get that timing. If you watch a lot of my fights, I do get caught early in the fight while I'm getting my rhythm a little bit, and I think from the way he performed in the fight, I felt like he watched that and he knew that would be the case, and he put pressure on me early in the fight. And he caught me off before I felt like I got my rhythm a little bit. And in this sport, one shot can change it. I've been caught like that a few times in fights, and I managed to come back and win fights. But this time, obviously, he caught me pretty good, and he managed to finish it. Sucks, but it's a part of the game. I've got to learn.
He must have used kryptonite nail polish on his toes, bro.
And I bet he had something, hidden somewhere there. Just caught me off a little bit.
Brother, you talk about your fighting style. I've watched quite a few of your fights, and if I was to describe it, there's a sprinkle of Muhammad Ali in there. There's a sprinkle of Dominic Cruz. There's a sprinkle of MVP. Any people kind of influence your way of fighting, and if you can share that with us?
Yeah, I mean the names that you just mentioned there, those are the guys. Just even when I was younger, I used to just watch them. And I used to just think that's awesome. Like Muhammad Ali, I've watched loads of Muhammad Ali fights, and it just makes you want to fight like that, floating around. So I've always liked that idea. I also used to like guys like Prince Nassim and things like that. So you can see what like my influences from a young age. I've kind of seen it, and then I think it's just, and I used to watch once I discovered Dominic Cruz. I did like study him a lot. I watched breakdowns of him, and I realized there was certain things that he does that I can put into my game. And it was working really well. So I had my own lateral movement, and I used to watch a lot of him as well. And I used to add in what I felt like I could add in from what he does, certain bumps and feints that he does, and you can see my movement pattern. I used a lot of that when I fought like Ronnie Man, especially of the type of bumps that Dominic Cruz does, and I felt like that was very effective in fighting people that are bigger than me, more powerful than me, because it kind of helps me move out the way of their strikes, put them under pressure without having to have loads of heavy exchanges. And it was just like a rhythm that I kind of just found. I felt like I've blended it all in and made my own kind of movement pattern and style through it.
Sure, man. That's because it looks like that, brother. I see you doing the Ali shuffle in there.
It's just fun, isn't it? It's like dancing. It just makes it. I think a lot of it it's just fun. And I think if you look at all fighters that have that kind of style, they all love just dancing and throwing. And I think it's just a fun style. And it just gives it's just more it's fun to try and do. So when you do it and especially when you're pulling it off, there's nothing quite like it when you make people miss and you're just floating in there and you're not so tense and you're relaxed. It's just fun, and it's just much more like exciting style to do rather than just kind of stand there and take loads of punishment. And it's all that it's about. And I know that they say it's about how hard you can get it and keep moving forward. That's the Rocky the quote, but mine's the total opposite. Mine's it's about how hard you can not get hit and keep going forward. It's not about how much damage you take. You don't want to be punch drunk. It's all about taking as less damage and dishing it out as much as possible.
For sure, man. Well, out of all those fights that I've watched, obviously you'll remember a lot more. From all those fights that you've had, can you share with us either one or two, whatever is the most rewarding fights? They don't have to be something that you won. It could be some sort of adversity that you've overcome. Can you think of any? And if you can you share that with us?
Yeah, of course. I personally feel like almost every one of my fights were the biggest fight of my life at that time. If you look at my record, I have had a lot of decision wins and things like that, but I've always fought guys that I was supposed to lose to. And when you're fighting at that level, or above your level that you're at, it's always hard to pull off certain things. So I feel like I fought guys that I was always meant to lose. So I think most of my fights I remember all of them because I was expected to lose most of the time. So I was always, trying to outperform like the expectations. But I think I'd have to mention at least two, maybe 3 or 4 or 5. I'll try to mention the two I felt like that really that had a real effect that I remember. One at amateur. And it was that fight I just mentioned earlier, the one that got me my name, Superman. When I fought Brian Crawley at amateur, that was a big turning point in terms of self-belief. After I beat him, I realized I could be one of the best, best in the country and really take the sport seriously, because I knew that he was destined for that. He was, the way he was built up and the way people were talking about him. So I knew that for me to be able to beat someone like him, it gave me a massive boost of confidence in thinking, no, I can do it in this sport. I can succeed in this sport. So winning that fight, and even that fight, I overcame adversity in the fight. It was the first time I've been dropped in a fight. The first time I ever experienced, switching off. But I managed to survive it, come back, and then I managed to win the fight. So and it also changed the game plan. My game plan was to strike with him, being a striker and thinking he was a strong wrestler. But then in the second and third round, I took him down, I out wrestled him, and I grappled, and I won by him with my ground and pound. So I felt like I learned a lot in that fight. So that's a big fight that I always remember. And I think the other one, in terms of the biggest win I've ever had in my career, and I mentioned it before, is when I fought Ronnie Man. The guy's a legend. You know, he's one of the biggest fighters out of the UK, I think, and especially for the time he fought in WEC before the UFC had the lighter divisions. He had fought everywhere, and I was moving up a weight division to fight him. That was another very similar scenario. A lot of the local people were saying, "I think you're jumping a bit too far ahead of what you think taking this fight." So it was very similar. I felt like it was a very similar motivation I had in this fight than when I had with Brent Crowley when I was an amateur. But this is a professional, and this guy's has already done it, and so I was really motivated for that fight. And I think that fight, getting the game plan right and winning that fight, that was, I think, a fight that I'll never forget. It's one of those things that you'll always look back on when you beat someone like that. So I think that's definitely one of the biggest fights that I'll always remember. I really feel though, if I had had that same fight on a bigger promotion, I would have had a world title. I think just because it was made for the cage, it was a big promotion locally, but they didn't easily. That fight could have been a world title on Cage Warriors, Bama, anywhere else. So I feel like I was sure I should have. I feel like although that fight, I got a European title for it. I feel like Ronnie Man beating him, and especially at the point of his career he was in, I feel like that's like winning a world title. That's kind of how I felt when I won that fight.
You've been on this martial arts journey for many years, Brother Shaj. Are there any coaches or mentors that have played a significant role? And if they are, who are they and what role have they played in your martial arts journey?
Oh, definitely. I've had so many people. I hate this question because I feel like I'll miss people out. So when you said that, I was just busy earlier when you mentioned just things to think about. I was actually just thinking a little bit about it. I mean, one of the guys I've got to give a shout out is my brother, Sham Haque. I've got to give him a shout out. Since I was young, he was one of my main training partners. He's cornered me almost all my fights. Funny enough, even growing up, I feel like even in my career, when he was fighting before I did, and I felt like any mistakes he made, I learned from it. And I feel like a lot of my successes is learning from his mistakes and things that he did or things he did well. So I feel like he was always a really good benchmark for me in terms of my training and just my career and my fighting and things and the decisions I made. So I'd have to give him a shout out. The other one is Jordan Cooper. I don't know if you know Jordan. You might know him from the grappling circuit. So he's doing really well in the grappling. Funny enough, Jordan, when he first started, I used to actually teach him a little bit. Because he didn't know anything when he first came. I used to teach him how to do bits of grappling. Now he's my grappling coach. So he teaches me now. And I think he's been there for me from all my biggest fights. I really think one of the reasons I feel a lot of my wins, like when I beat guys like Chris Edwards, Martin McDonough, Mark Connor, all these high-level grapplers, every time I beat grapplers, because I felt I trained with him and he was very good at breaking down my opponents and replicating them. He was like if you ever played Tekken or something, he's like Monkey Jin. We started calling him that in the gym because he replicated my opponents really well, especially any of the taller guys that I fought. And he was so good at it. So I've got to give him a shout out. And he still helps me now. Other people, you might know Ubi Rahman. He didn't fight as much professionally because of just this life commitments, but he's always been there for me, helping me out with all my training camps. I really feel like one of the reasons my striking's been successful is because of him. He's always been my benchmark in striking in all my camps that I've done. So I have to give him a shout out. I really feel like he would have done really well in his pro career if he had the time to commit to it. Other guys that really did it for us is also there's Mark Platz, and he used to be a ranked flyweight. He was a training partner of mine for a good few years. And I think I trained with him similar time when I fought Brent Crowley and people like that. And he really helped me get to that next level. When I was training, I learned loads of things from him, and I really feel like he deserves a shout out on anything in terms of my career. Although he doesn't train as much now, for the time I trained with him, he made a big difference. And there was also Ian Malone. He really improved my jiu-jitsu at that time when I met him. He's helped me loads in terms of my jiu-jitsu. So I haven't seen him in a while, but he's always my jiu-jitsu coach. And another shout out I always like to give, he probably doesn't even remember it, but Brian Moore. Do you know Brian Moore? He used to fight pro MMA. This was years ago. So I remember when I was about 18, he used to teach. I think he used to teach guys like Paul Cook and things like that. So when I didn't really have any training plans, just after I broke my arm, I didn't really have anybody to train with and things. And he let me into his little group, and I used to just like do a little bit to train with him. The gym was going through a bit of a bad time, and my other coaches weren't around. And he let me just train with him, and he really helped me with my wrestling and things back then. And he just gave me that time of day, didn't even charge me for anything. And I really feel like one of the reasons my wrestling was really good at that amateur level was just the things that I learned from him. I still use certain techniques I learned from him back then. I don't even think he remembers it. And maybe I should give him a shout one time and have a mention to him. But he helped me out a lot in that short period of time. It was about a year I trained with him, but I really feel like that made a big difference. So I felt like I should mention him. But yes, I've got loads of people. There's probably people I haven't mentioned, like, you know, in just life, my wife and everything, one that they've been really good to me, my family, my brothers and sisters, they've always been pretty supportive and things like that. So I've been quite blessed. You can imagine, you might know it as well. Asian pressure, you know, it's different. And and I felt like my family were quite good in terms of like letting me kind of do my sport, even though at the start I think people were thinking I'm wasting my time. I should be doing other stuff with it. So my family have been pretty good.
For sure. And at least even for you at a young age, you took that mature decision to wait until you got to university before you turned pro. So at least you got that out of the way, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that was a good decision I made. I look back and I tell that to some of the guys that are studying and things like that, and I want to fight professionally. I do give them that advice sometimes. Sometimes it's not for everybody. Everyone has different times in their life, but I always tell them if they're unsure what they're doing, it's good to finish your uni education while you're still training and then commit to it when you're ready.
Shaj, you're spending a lot of time at ACE MMA. How did that gym come about, and who else coaches there, and what role do they play down there?
Yeah, so the coaches at ACE MMA, it's like myself, I coach the MMA. Jordan Cooper, I just mentioned earlier, he's like the jiu-jitsu coach. And then I've got my brother and Ubi that also teaching Naveed. I don't know if you remember Naveed, Iranian guy.
He fought on the champions, didn't he, years
ago? Yes, I think he did. I think he did fight in your show. Yeah, so he's a beast.
Didn't he end up getting injured? Didn't he have an injury or something to do with his leg or his knee?
Yeah, I really believe that's why he didn't get to somewhere like I am in the sport. I think he injured his ACL at about, I think it was 18 or 19 years old, and never kind of fully. I think it always just held him back, and he was never able to like perform at the level I think he deserved to perform at. He still went on his amateur career 9-1, finished it really well, and then I think there just was too much for him. I think, and I don't know, other things kicked in his life. And he just didn't make it. But I really feel like he was one of those that he could have really done really well. And then, sorry, you asked us about ACE MMA, weren't you? I kind of went off track there a little bit.
No, cool. Just asking about, you know, the coaches that are there and how did ACE MMA come about? So
yeah, so it was just once we had a little bit of like we were fighting fit before, and we had some like manager and then like ownership changes and things like that. And then we kind of started fresh again. Thought like want to run it a little bit better. Want to be a bit more professional in the way we approach things and stuff like that. So when we switched to ACE MMA, we just sharpened everything up, and it was just like another little fresh start. Do everything properly, and just kind of go from there. And I think it's been doing really well since. We've got loads of like young talents now, young lads, and I really think you're going to hear some of these guys as they get a little bit older into the pro scene.
Yeah, for sure. I think was it last year or year before, one of your lads fought on Combat Challenge?
Yes, I think it was Shawan. Was it? He fought on Combat Challenge. Yes, I won with the guillotine. Yeah, so he's one to watch out for. Yeah, I think hopefully we can get him back on your show once things are going back. But,
well, yeah, I remember when I was speaking to him beforehand, and so his name's Shawan, but he uses a different name as well, doesn't he?
So you'll understand it's an Asian thing, isn't it? I have too many names. So I know him as Shawan, and then on Facebook he's Shahadat. And so I'm like, I'm not sure which name am I supposed to call him, but then he's got two names, so he just uses whichever one, I guess.
Cool. Man. Now, brother, you've been involved in martial arts for many years, and you know you've been a student, you're teaching, you're a professional athlete. If there's people out there who are wanting to compete on a professional level, from your knowledge and experience, what would you cascade down to them as advice?
I mean, I think if it's MMA, to do professionally in terms of MMA, to be fair, probably any sport. I think it's important to, now with the Conor McGregor effect, I think everybody thinks it's to make money. I think if you have that mentality from before you're someone, I think it's a bad mentality to have. I think there's a lot of kids now that want to be Conor McGregor. They don't understand that someone like Conor McGregor trained many years, got very good, and then he set his sight where he wanted to get, but he's more focused on his training and his actual development as an athlete. It doesn't just come by just trash talking and things. There's a lot of skill that you've got to have to back it up. And I think with the youth, I think that's what I try and explain to our guys. yes, it's definitely important to promote yourself. But while you're doing so, don't think of the money side of this sport. Until you get somewhere. Most guys don't even get there. You've got to do it because you love the sport. You can't do it because you think you just want to make money from it. If you don't love the sport, it's not going to happen. You can't be this sport. You can't really be successful on it unless you enjoy fighting. You've got to like the sport. You've got to like the process. It's just too much sacrifice for little reward, really, for what it's worth, unless you make it. So I think it's just too risky to say, right, I want to be a pro fighter because I want to be rich and to try to get through there. So I always tell the guys, enjoy the sport. The beauty of martial arts is that even if you don't make it, you're still learning self-defense. It's a life skill. I've always tell guys, I think it's a life skill, probably more important than swimming. You're more likely to get punched in the streets than drown in water. So that's how I kind of explain to guys. It's a bit of a life skill. Do it, you enjoy it, and then commit to it to the best you can. And if you want to be a successful pro, you do have to put it at the top of your list of things you want to do. You can't just have it in the back burner and think you're going to become a really good pro. When you're making decisions like your nutrition, your diet, you got to ask yourself: eating cheeseburgers every night, do you actually want it? Some people say I want it, but the actions don't speak it. Do you actually do the time in the gym? And when you do it in the gym, do you do your homework? Do you go home? Do you reassess what you're training on? So those are the things I try to advise the youth. Do it because you enjoy it. First, make sure you enjoy it. There's no point in doing something like this if you don't enjoy it. It's just not worth it. Even when you enjoy it, you sometimes think, why do I do this for? So that's kind of what I tell the guys. And then naturally, that's usually an end product. If they do that, they will get good. And then, make the decisions as they go, speak to your team, your coaches, and let yourself develop like that. Don't rush it and don't expect things, don't expect to be really rich through it. But as long as you can look back on the journey and say, I enjoyed the journey, then it's worth it. Because also you'll regret your life. It's just wasting your life, really. If you look back and you're like, I didn't even enjoy it. I didn't get rich. I got a black eye, bust nose, bent. You know what I mean? It's just not worth it. The damage you take in the sport. Look at me. I got a bent nose, a bit of cauliflower ear, but I enjoyed the journey. So it's one of those things. So I think that's usually the advice I try to give to the youth. Do it for because you enjoy it for self-defense reasons and whatever else there is. Do it for the other internal motivations, and then usually a byproduct is the money at the end of it. I do feel like my career, little things that I try to make sure that other guys don't. I do think that I didn't do the other side enough. I didn't promote myself enough when I was coming up. I used to be too humble, where I would just, I wouldn't even post wins that I've had. And, I beat guys like Ronnie Man and things. I put a little post here and there. I've had big wins. And I think my problem was I didn't promote myself enough. So I did the opposite side. So I try to teach them that it's important to promote yourself when you're doing sports like this, but not so much that you lose your way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Definitely. Well, you're passing down your knowledge, aren't you, from your experience, aren't you, right?
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I do feel like if I had promoted myself more, I think I would have got the opportunities a little bit more than what I got.
Brother Shaj, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. And my plan is 12 weeks from now to have another podcast with you to catch up from where we are now to where we're going to be then. I look forward to having you on the next one, my brother.
Inshallah. Excellent. No problem, man. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Take care, my brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.